old school.
We never told them why we can't get pregnant. Do you want to go there?
Do you want me to go there?
Well, it was just your fallopian tubes are gone.
Yeah. Okay, so why we went there, let's just say...
Okay, so we never actually told you guys why we can't get pregnant naturally and why we have to go through IVF. So here it is.
I had an OBGYN up in the state of Michigan from the Henry Ford Health System who screwed up my case. Not going to say the doctor's name because I know a couple of my friends who are her patients and that kind of thing. So not going to go there. Screwed up my case. I even have a copy of my medical record that said I was, what did she say I was? A hypochondriac over pain.
Thinking you were always sick.
I was always sick, and I kept going to her and saying, I'm in pain, I'm in pain. Her way of dealing with my pain is giving me a hydrocodone or a Darvocet. That's how I was treated for upwards of 5 years with Darvocet and hydrocodone. We get married, I go down to the Army doctors and say, hey, you know, I know we're newlyweds, we'd like to get pregnant, but I've been dealing with a lot of pain. You know, the basic OBGYN there on base said, you know, this is a little out of my territory. I have a reproductive endocrinologist on staff. Let me refer you to him. So he gave me, I can't even think of the name, but it's a really painful process where they shoot dye through a catheter up through your fallopian tubes, and it absolutely feels like somebody is ripping your uterus out of your freaking gut. It's painful. You know, and at that time, my fallopian tubes were clear. You know, I was coming back free. You know, they just had absolutely no cause or realization for my pain. And, you know, if you fast forward from that, upwards of 1.5 years, maybe not even that long, you know, we were living here in Charlotte, and we were on our way into work, and I was just behind the wheel, and I was crying. I was in so much pain, and Devin, let's go to the hospital. No, they're just going to tell me it's another freaking cyst. I can get through a cyst, blah, 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 you know, and...
So every time we were going there, that's all they said was,
everybody just tells me, you have a cyst, you have a cyst, you have a cyst, and that's all it is, and I've always been treated as you just have reoccurring cysts. Well, if you even flash back to 98, 99, my actual regular primary care, once again, not going to say his name, bad doctor, you know, oh, you're fine, blah, blah, blah. My appendix almost burst. If I had not gone to the hospital, if the guy I was dating at the time would not have taken me and convinced me to go to the hospital at that point, my appendix would have burst and I would have died back in 1999 because my appendix was so grown that it had actually grown behind, up, and around my uterus and started growing into itself. That's why I was in so much pain. It took a regular primary run-of-the-mill surgeon who was on call that night in Wyandotte Hospital to say she has appendicitis. It's gonna burst. We have to get her to the OR like now. I was taken to the OR at 2:30 in the morning after they admitted me. The idiots down in the ER admitted me for an ectopic pregnancy, and I wasn't even pregnant. I don't know if it's a healthcare thing up in Michigan, what's going on, whatever. I think it's just run-of-the-line mill that, you know, reproductive issues, I think, are something new with expertise, and even sometimes the only person available to you is reproductive endocrinologists because they are the only people who really can understand what a woman's going through. But beside the point, let's flash forward back to, you know, now. I had surgery again in 2007 or 2006, 2007? 2006.
I think it was 7.
It was 07, okay.
It was a year after I got out of the Army.
Okay, so 07, flash forward, blah, blah, blah. Presented to the ER. You know, I had fifth-year resident who, sought over my case down in the ER. Obviously you're sent for blood scans, ultrasounds, blah, blah, blah. She came to me and said, I don't know what's causing this. I don't trust the ultrasound techs here at the hospital. Please come see me at the clinic that I'm practicing at. So I said, okay. So I go to her, the next day, and, I see her ultrasound, I see her lab techs and all this other stuff. And, still could not identify what specifically was going on. It's across the street.
Okay.
I know who it is. She, therefore, in turn referred me to the Women's Institute, where they have on staff the actual reproductive practice. There are 6 reproductive endocrinologists on staff up there, and a whole bunch of expert, radiologists who do nothing but ultrasounds for, people in my position. And the day I got in there, and they were running a baseline ultrasound on me, I had 3 ultrasound techs and 4 reproductive endocrinologists looking at my ultrasound saying, we don't know what that is. Kind of scary, right? Mm-hmm. They scheduled out a surgery, for like 2 days later. We show up, I lost my fallopian tubes.
Yeah, when she went in for the surgery, they said that might be a risk.
Yeah.
And when the doctor came out to see me while Erica was still under, she showed me pictures of them, and those suckers were just
blown out,
huge.
I think, in all honesty, after becoming friends with a lot of you on Facebook, because I don't have time to watch a lot of YouTube, so in reading some of your stories, I really think that I have PCOS. It's just gone undiagnosed all this time, to be honest with you. Plus I have a tilted uterus. I found that out from a ultrasound tech. Not even on the freaking, that's not even a diagnosed thing from a doctor. It's not on any of my medical records, but an actual radiologist told me that I had a tilted uterus. And obviously as women, we all know that that's a complication of trying to get pregnant. So
we had a whole lot going against us, and we have overcome quite a bit.
For sure.
And looking forward
and
to
even
more.
still, and I'm not gonna lie, ladies, still going through the same pain now, even though I have lost my fallopian tube. So, Devin and I are doing some decision after we're done having kids, and he and I can agree that we're done having kids, that he and I have agreed that I'm going to have an elective hysterectomy, because I don't want to live like this for the rest of my life, because the only thing at this point that takes it away is a narcotic, and I don't want to be on a narcotic for the rest of my life. So as long as he and I are in agreement that for sure we're done having kids, I'm going to go to the doctor and say, I want to have a hysterectomy, I'm in too much pain, and I don't want to live on pills the rest of my life. And that just has to be the way it is. If I have to go on HRT, so I'm not a moody crab that you guys don't like here in the house, I'm willing to do that.
But that is
sorry, long drawn out story.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm going to make that its own video on its own, because this video is going to be like 45 minutes long.
Whatever.
So
you know what that means? Seriously, do you know what that means?
So that is why we can't get pregnant.